Welcome to this episode of CynSpeaks. In this episode, we are going to discuss childhood trauma. And this is a heavy episode, and I'm going to address it in a few different ways, but hopefully you gain something from it, and hopefully it helps you to grow and hopefully heal, which is my hope for all of you. So I want to first say thank you for joining as always. I really appreciate it. And we'll jump right in. So let's just talk about trauma and the sources of trauma. So trauma for children happens from many different avenues. It can happen from parents, kids at school, teachers or leaders or mentors, and even friends. And many adults are carrying around issues from childhood trauma. And those issues don't go away unless you learn to release them and address them. So we're going to actually talk about the ego in that healing process and how it can slow or even sometimes block that healing from the childhood traumas that may be preventing you from moving forward in your life. So trauma could show up in many different ways. Trauma could be physical abuse. It could be mental abuse. It could be emotional abuse, which I think is probably the hardest for people to wrap their head around because it's difficult to think that your parents may hurt you without even knowing, and your friends may harm you without even knowing that they're doing it. And I experienced this in many different ways, but I don't want to get too far into that because this isn't about my trauma. But I just want you to know that I understand, and I understand how hard the healing from it all is. But I also want you to know that it is so worth it to heal for your future generations in your family, to do that healing work now to help them do better for their future. So just acknowledging that you may have had some type of trauma is a huge first step. I've tried many things to deal with the things that I've been through, but honestly, the best way for me to deal with that stuff was through my current spiritual practices and through meditation, and really just no longer focusing on those things. I've tried therapy, and what therapy does is it requires you to go back into that space. And what I've found is that every time I talked about it without acknowledging the good in it and the lessons that came with it, I actually did myself more harm because I brought myself back to that place almost. And it didn't move me forward. It actually pulled me backwards. So I am an advocate for therapy if that's the avenue that works for you. But for me, that didn't work. It actually was counterproductive. So I found that since the past isn't real anyway, right? It's already happened. So it's no longer real. I found that for me, looking back didn't help. Now, the only reason I look back is to either quickly learn a lesson. I don't sit on it for very long. Or to acknowledge the blessing that came with it. Because I found that everything that I've been through came with some type of blessing. And sometimes the blessing is just the knowledge of that situation and experience. And I've seen how that helped me to become a better mother. Just understanding my children a little bit better and what they may be going through and how that makes them feel. That could be the reason why I went through what I went through. And I'm okay with that because it allows me to be a very empathetic parent and friend to many young ones. So I find that looking back only to acknowledge the lesson and give thanks for the lesson is what works for me, because I don't typically vibrate in a low frequency or negative level. It just doesn't serve me at all, and I don't think it really serves anybody. So I don't really stay there. I don't have a desire to go back to that place. I am thankful for all the things that I've been through, and I'm glad that I get to look forward. And right now in this moment, I'm okay. Like, I've made peace with all of those things because I see how my life works, and how the fact that even when I go through something, there's a blessing on the other side. It's for a reason. There's a huge lesson, and it's all collectively moving me forward. So when you're thinking about this trauma, I don't want you to sit in that space, because I really don't think it's going to serve you or help you. And I want to help you in the best way possible. So what I think you can do is simply go to that place through a meditation or just a thought, and acknowledge the fact that it happened, and then release it and say, you know what? That was the past. It happened, and I release it. I no longer feel feelings of resentment. I'm not mad or upset with anyone. It happened. And I'm thankful for what I know is coming next, which is something better. And that may be hard to do. It may take you years. Something that I went through as a teenager, it took me years to go through it. But coming out of it, I am so thankful that I was able to come through it. That may have been what I needed. Also, I'm a lot more mindful of how I function, just to prevent that thing from happening again, because it won't. But just being mindful and being understanding of teenagers today and what they go through, all of that came from what I went through. Also, the ego, the role that the ego plays in this healing process, which again looks different for every person. The ego can block you from healing. I know so many people that have childhood trauma, and they can't even admit that they have a trauma, which, if you think about it, is sad. You can't heal if you don't see that there was an issue. So your ego and that huge facade that comes with it can block you from growing. And in turn, it will also block your children from being delivered from this. They'll continue to have to deal with your traumas and your lack of knowing, because you're not acknowledging that something happened. So acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, you may have been through some things as a child, but your focus is to be better now as an adult. That right there is really all you need. You just need to acknowledge, you know what, I've probably been through some things. I probably am not perfect. Probably don't know the exact way, but guess what? I'm going to focus on doing my best. And I'm going to do better every single day. That right there is the answer. Your heart is what can drive you to change for future generations. Your heart. Being mindful. Using your heart, your skills as a heartfelt individual to be empathetic. Is this really working? Is this for me or is this for them? Discipline is a huge one. And I have children, and I know how challenging it is to find the right way to discipline children. It is important that you customize discipline for each child and really think of why you were made a parent. It's really to guide. You are blessed with the babies, to guide them and to help them be prepared for this world and to grow into the best version of them. Not to mold them into a perfect robot, right? But to help them learn how to grow into the best version of themselves. So I can tell you that with my kids all the time. I tell them, hey, I love you guys. This is between you two. Work it out. And that is probably the biggest favor I can do to them, because they know how to compromise, they know how to communicate, they know how to work through things. And I did that when they were 2 and 3 years old, because you'd be surprised, but most 2 and 3 year olds know how to communicate in their way. Sometimes you have to monitor that for safety, but they know how to talk and they know how to work it out. They have those skills already. You just have to help set up the scenarios for them to make that choice to bring them out. So just think of your role as a parent, and even a teacher or a guide, whatever it is, a leader. Even in the corporate world, your childhood trauma can come out. If your supervisor passes you up for a promotion, it may bring up feelings of being like abandoned, right? Your feelings of abandonment. Well, they didn't choose me. I just want somebody to choose me, right? Which also may show up in personal relationships. Well, I just want him to choose me, so I'm going to be this perfect person for him. And really not ever knowing you. It's huge. So healing from all of those things that you went through is as simple as acknowledging that they existed in the past and deciding that they're pretty much not important for your future unless you're looking back to thank the lessons. And what you focus on will magnify, what you focus on will grow. So focusing on the good things in the present moment and giving thanks for those blessings in the current moment are the areas in which you will see more of that magnify for your future. I also want to quickly touch on generational curses. I've heard this concept many times. Well, this is how we've always done it, and this always happens to us, and this is just the way it's always been, so this is the way it's always going to be. It doesn't have to be that way. Just because that's what's always been done doesn't mean that's what always needs to be done. There's a huge difference. You have a choice in what your future looks like. Maybe not the past, but in the future, you can decide what you want that to look like. What you do now is going to affect what your life looks like in the future. So if you want future generations to continue to have the same type of outcomes, keep doing what you're doing. And you think about this with trauma, like discipline practices, or you can think of it with even wealth. I see some families where they say, well, we've always been wealthy. And guess what? Their family is always wealthy. That's just what it is. That's the vibration that they set up for their entire family. And those are the beliefs and the thoughts that they program every person in their family to believe. So that's what they believe. So that's what they do. And that's what happens. So that can be used to your advantage, and you can set your family up for amazing things in the future, starting with your children. Or it can set your family up to repeat the same habits over and over and literally live the same lives over and over, which I don't think any of you guys want. I think you guys are all here because you want more for yourselves, and it all starts with you. You don't have to explain what you're doing to anybody, but really focusing on healing and really putting your energy on those things that are good and those things that feel good. That's the big one. Do what feels good. If it feels good, do more. If you don't feel regret after the fact, do more. If you don't feel shame towards yourself, do more of it. If there's no judgment attached after the fact, do more of it. Now, on the other side of the scale, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. If you don't know how to say no, you better learn pretty quickly. If somebody asks you for a favor and your answer isn't absolutely no problem, my pleasure, then you should say no. Learn to say no. Learn to set boundaries. And see how your life starts to change. Focus on the good. Learn to say no. Accept the fact that the past is the past and it doesn't have to repeat. It's all up to you. And you're going to see how quickly your life changes for the better. I really hope this helped. As always, be sure to subscribe and share the episodes. Add me on Instagram at Cynamon Voe, always in the show notes. And also check out the YouTube channel. If you want to share episodes through YouTube, it's the same episodes that are on the podcast, at least for now. And you'll just click the link and share that way. For some people, that's easier. So I'm uploading in both places for now. And then soon we'll add video content. So we're working on that for you guys. As always, with love, thank you for joining. Until next time.